One of the most famous man-made structures in the entire world is arguably the Great Pyramid of Giza, standing over 450 feet tall, with its base spanning more than 750 feet wide. But before we begin, if you love anything to do with ancient Egypt, make sure you subscribe for more content. It is the oldest and largest of the 3 pyramids at the Giza necropolis, as well as the oldest of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. In fact, of the thousands of ancient monuments constructed by humans across the globe, only a very small percentage of them are pyramids. This period of roughly 7 centuries saw the construction of dozens of pyramids throughout the land. Well, it's because I believe that this particular pyramid is the most interesting and also the most misunderstood. And then they would use wooden hammers and chisels to shape and smooth out the blocks. We also know that while the outer surface of the pyramids were made of Tura limestone, the interior was made of granite. But unfortunately, we're going to have to save those for another video, because otherwise this one will never end. It's because they were tombs for the pharaohs of Egypt. That's right. Each pyramid at Giza was designed to be a monument that would last for eternity, ensuring that the body of the pharaoh was safe and undisturbed for all of time. The Egyptians believed that the pyramids would help preserve the bodies of the pharaohs and allow them to continue living on in the afterlife. Well, unfortunately, they didn't fare too well. Throughout history, they've been looted countless times, with the earliest recorded instance dating back to around 1500 BCE. In fact, experts estimate that the Sphinx, which is closely associated with the pyramids, has already lost 10% of its stone blocks due to weathering. They've been extremely helpful in the creation of this video and are full of great information. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing. You won't forget to leave me a comment and like the video and check out my other videos on ancient Egypt. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Even the Great Pyramid of Giza was not immune to this, with the Arab historian al-Maghrazi noting that the top section of the pyramid was destroyed by earthquakes, and then stripped of its limestone casing by Sultan al-Aziz Uthman in 1292. This is why the chambers in the middle of the pyramids were often filled with treasures and provisions that the pharaoh would need on their journey to the afterlife. You can probably imagine the removal of the outer casing combined with the erosion caused by the elements has left the pyramids vulnerable to the effects of weathering. Not to mention that the construction materials were never meant to be permanent in the first place. Limestone, for example, is a sedimentary rock that can be worn away by wind and rain, while the mortar holding the blocks together is slowly dissolving due to chemical reactions with the environment. However, because most of these stones were taken by looters throughout history, we can only see the core of the structure at certain points, such as at the base or near the top of the pyramid. What we think the inside looked like comes mostly from the Khufu pyramid, whose interior chambers are still intact. And the dead are said to travel to the west at night to join the gods. Another thing you may have noticed about the pyramids is their orientation. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for example, faces true north within a few arcseconds. While the accuracy of this feat of engineering is impressive, it isn't unique. In fact, every single pyramid built in Egypt is oriented towards true north with a high degree of accuracy. They were also meant to demonstrate the pharaoh's connection to the gods, as the Egyptians believed that the pyramids themselves were sacred places where the physical world met the spiritual world. One theory is that they used a simple device called a merkhet, which was basically a weighted object attached to a vertical pole. By watching the motion of the merkhet, they could determine true north and then align their pyramid accordingly. Whatever their method, it was clearly very effective and shows the incredible skill and knowledge of the ancient Egyptians. To them, the pyramid was a way of reaching the heavens, a stairway to the gods. To start off with the size of the structure, the Great Pyramid of Giza stands 481 feet tall, which is just under 100 cubits. Then that plan was divided into 88 smaller grids, each one measuring 5 cubits by 5 cubits. These smaller plans were then made into 3D models using reeds and string, which were then used to lay the foundation of the pyramid. From there, workers would follow the model and build up the structure, adding another layer of limestone blocks every time they reached a new multiple of 5 cubits. Every 5, 10, 15, etc., as they built the pyramid higher and higher. They would rotate each level to degrees clockwise, creating the subtle spiral pattern that allows us to tell which direction the wind was blowing at the time. If you're not familiar with the cubit, don't worry. Basically, it's an ancient unit of measurement equal to the length of a forearm plus hand. Each pyramid at Giza has a slightly different height, but for the most part, the measurements are pretty consistent. This means that somewhere between 200 and 300,000 limestone blocks were required to construct the Great Pyramid. These blocks would have been quarried nearby and then transported to the construction site either on boats down the Nile or on sleds during the night to avoid the heat of the day. In fact, Giza is just one of many locations where pyramid building took place. For example, the vast majority of the pyramids from the Old Kingdom were built at Dashur and Saqqara, two separate necropolises located near Memphis. Some of the most notable examples include the Bent Pyramid and the Red Pyramid at Dashur, as well as the Step Pyramid of Saqqara, which was the very first pyramid ever constructed, each one serving as the final resting place for a pharaoh of one of the 3 main kingdoms that ruled over Egypt during this time: the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. However, one country does have a disproportionate number of them, and that country is Egypt. Of those 120 or so pyramids that remain in the world today, nearly 100 of them are found here in Egypt. The sheer scale of the structure has led to many misconceptions about how exactly it was built and why it is even there in the first place. And that's what we're going to be exploring today, along with the broader history of pyramids in Egypt. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. I'm the host, and this is our history. Now, despite their ubiquity in popular culture, representing everything from the sands of the desert to ancient civilizations, pyramids are actually quite rare when it comes to actual archaeological sites, with only around 120 remaining in the world today. The reason for this is because Egypt had a tradition of building pyramids that spanned almost 1,000 years. From around 2680 BCE to around 2055 BCE, however, It's important to know that while these pyramids are often referred to as the Pyramids of Giza, they were not all built at Giza. But with so many different pyramids built all over the place, why did I decide to focus on the one at Giza? We know that they likely used copper tools to quarry the stone, much like the copper chisels that have been found in other Old Kingdom sites. In terms of the overall design, the plan was laid out on a flat surface, just like a flat piece of paper. Of course, you might have noticed some other features of the pyramid that you're wondering about, such as the air shafts leading to the queen's chamber or the tunnels leading down to the king's chamber. For why the pyramids were built the way they were, well, that's actually pretty simple. Pyramids were also built as symbols of power and wealth, showing everyone who dared to look upon them that the Egyptian pharaohs were some of the richest and most powerful people in the world. For this reason, pyramids were always built on the west side of the Nile. Since the sun sets in the west, however, we don't know exactly how they were able to accomplish this without modern equipment. So now you know that the pyramids were built as tombs for the pharaohs. But what happened to them after the ancient Egyptians stopped building them? This, of course, is not to mention the damage done by treasure hunters in more recent centuries who literally blew holes in the structure in search of valuables. What this all means is that the pyramids are slowly but surely eroding away and will eventually be nothing more than a pile of rubble. If you want to learn more about the Giza pyramids, I recommend checking out the resources listed below.